Joining me, Sandra Smith, co-anchor of America Reports on Fox News. Taylor Riggs, co-host of The Big Money Show, right here on fabulous Fox Business. And back with us from crashing the stock market, Gerri Willis.
I did not crash the stock market.
Fabulous Fox Business
so what was the
correspondent.
Dow down today? It was like, what did it finish up?
Well, it was the NASDAQ that was the big story, right?
It's just this idea of crashing. I don't know if the
Down 700. I know.
At the 1%.
Have a cocktail. Sandra Smith, they had inflation reports. That was one thing. A lot of tariff announcements. That's another. And then these goofball Republicans talking about actually raising taxes. That'll do it every time. It's like 1, 2, 3. They forget who they are. You know, Republicans have a guilt complex. Have you ever thought about that?
I don't know.
Like Mitt Romney. Remember Mitt Romney was always ashamed of his successes in life. And Mitt Romney's a wonderful man and a brilliant businessman. I don't know what it is about Republicans. They always get cold feet.
Yeah. I kept thinking during your opening riff that this song, Dumb Ways to Die.
Yes.
The kids are playing it a lot in the house.
Yes.
Dumb ways to die. Yeah. Tax hikes in this environment would obviously be very brutal. The continuous talks of the tariffs is not helping things, right? There's a major hit to consumer confidence, although I will highlight in this moment of plunging, I think you can fairly say that consumer confidence, I think consumer confidence down 13% since Election Day. It's down 7% since Inauguration Day. It's definitely taken a hit. It's not correlating to spending.
No, it never does.
You know, I had a chat with the Federal Reserve Chair who highlighted the same thing.
Yeah.
I think there was a time when they correlated. They're not right now.
By the way,
Americans are still spending and going about their daily lives.
I don't mean to interrupt. Can get you back.
Go ahead.
John Carney did a study, the Michigan Consumer Sentiment Survey. It's weighted down by Democrats. It's actually political. Democrats, independents, Republicans. Democrats have zero confidence. Republicans much higher. Independents somewhere in between. It's just fascinating. And it kind of makes us suspect about that. But there are issues here. I mean, I want to just focus. Inflation is not beaten. I think that's one thing. Now, that's Biden inflation, Sandra. It's Biden inflation. I mean, you can't pin that on Trump. The Fed never should have had the jumbo rate cuts in September and again in November. And it's going to continue to plague. And I think the market here knows the Fed is not going to have any rate cuts, and they can't pour more money supply into the economy. That's got to be part of this.
No, and it would only feed inflation. And I think you keep hearing from President Trump, cut the interest rates, and he talks to Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, who said if the Fed's not going to cut the rates, then let's look at the longer-term rates and go about it that way. There has been a drop in those rates, but in an inflationary environment, I don't know that that's the direction you want to go in. I think that there's a bigger and bigger predicament that seems to be coming together by the day, and that's the uncertainty that we're seeing in the market.
Taylor, how'd you read the markets today, and what do you think how do these factors stack up in your mind?
For me, it was the PCE numbers today. I just want to bring you a quick quote. The 12-month core PCE jumped up to 2.8%. 6-month core inflation is back up to 3.1%. Of the 176...
3-month up to 3.6%.
Yes.
Right? And that's fair, right? Okay.
Yes.
That's a big number, 3.6.
I don't like that. And of the 176 components in PCE, 35% are now posting annualized gains of 5% or more. So over a third of the basket is growing at over 5%. Yeah. I don't like that. The UMich survey, which I know is all Democrats, but that 1-year ahead inflation expectation is 5%. Right. I agree. The soft data has not translated into the hard data. Watch what I do, not what I say. I can say I don't feel good, but if I'm spending, it doesn't matter. My worry is when that starts to get entrenched and it does start in the savings rate, make me save because I'm cautious and I'm not spending. That's why enough with the tariffs. Talk to me about the tax cuts.
Yeah, see,
because the market isn't loving that.
I think it's tariffs. I think it's the tariff talk that is driving down these markets. And it's because we don't know what's going to happen. It's an open question. Every day there's a different headline. The president says something different every day about tariffs. So as a business person, you don't know how to plan. As an individual, as a homeowner, you don't know how to plan. Well, you don't know where we're going next. The market hates uncertainty.
I think that it's interesting to me. I will make the case, as I have, that tariffs by themselves will not create inflation.
Correct.
Inflation is a monetary phenomenon. too much printing press money, too much government spending. Now, by the way, government spending is still spending a lot because the Trump people, they're going to start turning the screws very, very soon with the DOGE brothers and all the rest of it. Russ Vought was on the OMB director, but it hasn't happened yet. So there's that. But to Gerri's point, you know, it's like in rapid fire. No matter what an economist or somebody might think in the theory, you've had cars, steel, aluminum, lumber, chips, semiconductors, and pharmaceuticals very quickly, rapid fire, boom, 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 boom. And the other thing, Gerri, that troubled me, talked about it on last night's show, is I'm for reciprocity. All right, you tax me, I'm going to tax you. But if you lower your tariff, then we might lower our tariff too. All of a sudden, it sounds like that's kind of out the window, and these are just big tariffs, whether it's an international economic emergency or whether it's national security. The reciprocity policy, I thought, Gerri Willis, was popular, but that seems to have been pushed aside. Now, I don't know that that's the final word, but I just wonder whether the stock market and people's perceptions aren't saying, hang on a second, this is not exactly what we bargained for.
I think that's a very good point. And, you know, it makes kind of incredible sense to Americans, right? If they're going to put this kind of tariff on our goods, we're going to come right back.
Yeah, it's easy to understand, too.
And it was easy to communicate to the American people, right? And if you look at a map of who's charging the big tariffs compared to our tariffs, let me tell you, we're on the short stick a lot. And that's a simple argument to make to the American people.
But Sandra Smith, one of the dumbest things that could possibly happen in the history of the Earth and the entire solar system, including the Milky Way, is a tax hike. How about a tax hike now? And now, Axios, they're famous for it, right? Anonymous, you know, no attribution. Rumors running on Capitol Hill. We're going to have to raise corporate tax. We're going to have to raise top rate. It would be among the 3 stupidest things in history.
Yeah, and I don't ever bet against you, Larry Kudlow. No, this is not a good time for tax hikes, never a good time for tax hikes. We need to spur growth. We need taxes to come down. We need to keep deregulating, and that's how we will eventually end up at
Why
growth.
doesn't the president, just like you just said, tax hikes and deregulating,
focus on that.
A winning combo.
But that's why I keep saying, because, you know, from a television perspective, when we're delivering the news every day, it feels like the fear-mongering over the tariffs is winning the day.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You know how many times I sit down and tell people about what the Federal Reserve Chair actually said in his last news conference? That the tariffs would have a minimal effect on inflation.
That's right.
I mean, this is not exactly a Trump guy. And he's saying, you know, this is not something that I think that we need to spend our days worrying about. I wrote down 2 things while you were talking, though. There's concern over the tariffs, but there's concern, too, about the uncertainty, the disruption that is happening right now. Take Elon Musk and DOGE and, like, all these changes that are happening. And that leads to uncertainty. And when there's uncertainty, people sort of buckle their wallets, you know, they change their habits a little bit. But to your point, we haven't exactly seen that yet.
Life is uncertain.
Life is uncertain.
Life is uncertain.
Wait, one last thing. But
you know, each day brings new challenges, Sandra.
I agree.
You know, yesterday is gone. Tomorrow is unknowable. All we have is today.
But the promise was lower prices, and that needs to be a focus as well, because you have noticed that this is an administration that's not rolling out news conferences to say gas prices are down X, your grocery prices are down, because it hasn't happened yet.
Eggs. We're going to have Rookie Rollins coming on.
Gas prices actually are up.
Eggs crashed into an omelet. I mean, they really have.
So people want to see those
you
prices
didn't even laugh
come down.
At that was really, I thought it was pretty clever.
Don't we think, though, that the great news is DOGE here and what they're doing?
Yes.
Last night's interview, I was just riveted by what they're doing. I'd never heard it described in such detail, and it makes so much common sense.
Don't you think Elon and his group have tremendous public support? Seriously.
Yes.
I really think so.
Yes.
People know that the government in Washington is too big, it's too bloated, it's too IRS, it's too many people not coming to work in the morning. I mean, I think that's a very serious thing.
And it's badly run. That's what Elon says that I think was never fully explained ever, anywhere, anytime, was how poorly the organism is just, it's ridiculous and it's rife for abuse.
And you know, Taylor, on that point, when I interviewed Elon also, he cited the fact that the GAO, the Government Accounting Services, GAO, government, whatever it's called, GAO, it's too late, it's Friday. But anyway, they had a study last year under Biden there was over $500 billion of waste, fraud, and abuse. Okay, this year they came out with yet another study. It was about 140 billion more. And Elon said to me, you know, these studies have been around for decades, but they gather dust on shelves.
Yes.
He's the first guy that's going to actually implement what's happening now. I just think people know that, and I think that's a huge. That may be right now, this second, the most positive thing out there.
Yeah.
It's catching dust in 44 files in a Pennsylvania cave, first of all, which is the first problem. But I think to your point, people love DOGE. There's massive support for DOGE. We should be rallying around it. I loved when Elon Musk said that in order to save Social Security for me, for my daughter, you got to cut the waste, fraud, and abuse. She'll actually get higher payments now if we cut it out so that we can save it in the long term. I love that. Quickly, too, on the markets, much of this is very much fundamentals and the tariff news that we're hearing. A lot of this is a repricing of valuations. NVIDIA, for example, was trading at 45 times forward earnings. It's now back in line with the S&P, 20 to 25 times. Profits haven't totally collapsed yet.
Profits
and you
are
always
doing
say that
okay.
is the leading indicator.
Profits
That's
are the
leading
mother's milk of
indicator
stocks, right.
Of recession. I don't see a recession. So some of this was just repricing on how we're thinking about AI. Alibaba comes out and says AI is in a bubble, just trying to figure out where we are right now in growth versus profitability for some of these tech companies.
But Sandra, end with you on this. I think your point earlier, I don't want to lose this point. I think President Trump should message more tax cuts and deregulation. I mean, that is a winner. Everybody likes that.
That the hard data isn't backing up the sentiment and the drop in confidence out there, I think it goes a lot to the messaging. They've got to get the messaging out there, and they've got to beat the fear-mongering that's happening over tariffs, minimize it at least, and focus on the growth message.
And I think
you're never going to go wrong focusing on growth.
That's it. But Republicans need therapy. They are afraid of success. They have a psychological problem
Maybe
with
we should
success.
turn this into a couch.
I don't know what it is. Put the whole GOP on the couch, and I'll be the therapist. How about that? Anyway, ladies' night out. Gerri Willis, Taylor Riggs, Sandra Smith. You're all fabulous. Thank you ever so much. Be sure to catch Sandra along with her co-anchor John Roberts on America Reports weekdays 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Fox.
Featuring Larry Kudlow.
And you're on the 5 tonight,
yes,
so that's coming right soon. And then Taylor Riggs, along with her co-hosts Brian Brenberg, Dagan McDowell, and Jackie DeAngelis on The Big Money Show, noon to 2 p.m. Eastern, right here on Fabulous Fox Business.